Hello, friends. I put a tiny bit of extra time on the end of the intro and I forgot, and I was like, it's not worked. Welcome to Booked. I'm Saffron Asteria and I'm joined by returning guest Joel Glover. How you doing?
Returning champion.
Oh, returning champion. Honestly, I'm surprised that you're not wearing a onesie.
No, I've actually dressed. I'm fully dressed like an adult today.
Well done.
I know. I won't. I can get a knee just into range, and you'll see that it's just black. Even that is a concession to the increasing ravages of old age, and my wife. And you can decide which of those is more detrimental to my long-term health. I think it changes day to day.
Hand in hand. It's like a roundabout. Well, I'm dressed from the waist up. I have clothes on from the waist down, but they're not like work appropriate.
That's actually what it is I've been at work today, and I simply haven't changed from my working from home work attire.
That's fine. There was no dress code, so we're totally fine. We've got some people that have already joined us today. We've got Grant. Oh my god, I can't even say your fucking name. Hello, Grant, with an NT. Dress for the job you want. Well, I should dress like I don't know.
What do I want?
I don't know what I
want. A valid point though, but you know, if listeners, well, no, I suppose because my first appearance on this show was so early on that there was no video, right? And so we described my attire. But I dress when not dressed for work, like an explosion in a children's ward. It is not unusual for me to receive Instagram targeted ads for jogging bottoms, which it turns out are only available in the sale in Gap's kids, aged like 1 to 2. I am told at least once a week by my wife to go and get changed so that when I am out with the children, I do not embarrass them. And so... and this is the thing, right? So I've started a new job recently, and I'm working a lot in Belfast, where it rains all the time.
Yeah,
right? It's really wet because it's much further north than it exists in the English imagination. It's also coastal, and the island of Ireland isn't very wide, so it's not that far from the other coast. And I have bought myself a ludicrous coat to keep me dry.
Oh,
and I went out for a bite to eat the other day with someone because we were staying, and she just started laughing at me. She's very elegant, and she was like, "I've got to take a picture of you now to send to my friends to explain the way that my boss dresses." And I was like, "Fine, whatever." Like, it's not the first time this has happened to me. But yeah, she made me do a twirl and everything. So I dress very professionally, sort of slightly idiosyncratically, but very professionally in the workplace. When I'm at home and working, moderately professionally, like more professionally than anyone else that I work with because I'm in charge. And then the rest of the time, like I got dressed in the dark and I'm 2.5 years old.
Fantastic. I love that. Brilliant. We've got a few more people that are with us today. Hello, Dizzy from Twitch. I'm always happy when like the other things that I've streamed to have worked. Because then it means I've clicked all the right buttons. I'm clicking on Grompt one again.
Don't bring Grompt back.
Oh my God.
He's had his say. He's wasted his opportunity.
We've got Ellen Holmes. Thank you so much for joining us today. Sarah has asked me to say her name weird. Hello, Sarah. I'm glad you're here as well. There is something about being in your presence, Joel, that makes me feel like I'm like 5 years old. I don't know what it is.
Well, the thing that it's not always immediately obvious about me if you meet me in a social context, but like my profession is actually quite serious, and I bring to it such a high level of energy and enthusiasm that as I said, starting this new job in October, and about 6 weeks in, something happened that it upset my equilibrium a little bit. Like I was a little annoyed.
Yeah.
And again, Magda, who I work with, said to me afterwards, "I'm a bit relieved." And I was like, "What are you relieved about?" And she basically explained to me that I am so hyper and happy all the time that she was beginning to worry that I was in the grip of some sort of like maniacal delirium. because the project that we're working on is very complicated and it's very frustrating at times. And she's like, why aren't you more annoyed? And I'm like, what is there to be annoyed about? She was like, were you in the same meeting as me? Like, what's wrong with you? So the first time she actually saw me just being a bit frustrated, she was like, oh, thank God, he is actually like, he is aware that things are happening around him. I'm just employed basically like a golden retriever in human form who seems to think that although there's a technical component to his role, his main role is like basically like a vibes hire.
I'm really happy for you. That's nice.
Like, you know, honestly, like I genuinely couldn't be happier because it's like, oh, do you know what this team mostly needs? And I'm like, is it, you know, and I can list off the things that I'm like adept in, and they're like, no, not really. They're just really sad all the time. They need someone to tell them that they're doing a good job and that everything's going to be okay all the time. And I'm like, you can't put that on a job advert though, Saffron, because I mean, firstly, everyone thinks they can do it, and secondly, that'd be mad. That'd be a mad thing to put on a job spec. But it turns out that it's actually a thing.
Do you ever just run out of steam and have to like stare at a wall, or are you always on it?
I'm always on.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm envious, really. Do you? What's your diet like? Are you well vitaminized?
Yeah, I mean, this may take us in a direction, right? So I've got long COVID. Don't know if we've talked about that before. Oh yeah, I'm deeply afflicted with long COVID. I got
I'm sorry.
This is I blame you actually. I got the Kent variant back in 2020.
Oh, I was living there then. Yeah, it might have been.
It was your people.
Yeah, we coughed in your direction.
Yeah. The winds brought it 2 counties round the M25. So, swine. So your people did this to me. So I got the Kent variant, felt like I fell down the stairs, and I wasn't particularly ill, like in the grand scheme of COVID. Like I'm not like, oh, woe is me, you know, like there was no hospitalization. It didn't get in my lungs. What it got into, it transpires, was my brain, and like I had 2.5 years of like low energy, like exhaustion, chronic brain fog, and I have still got, and I'm mostly out of that now. But it also got basically just completely into my digestive system. Got like it's in my liver. I'm having to have like I've got gallstones I've got to take out, which is horrific.
Oh my God.
I was like thrown up in pain. I was shitting blood. It was dreadful, really. Awful experience. Wouldn't recommend it. And as a consequence of that, I've had to radically reshape my diet. Right. I'm like the only person that's ever been to an actual dietitian. Not this. I'm not talking about like going on YouTube and watching a video where a man says you just have to eat steak all the time, right? Like I went to an actual, like provided by the state health service dietitian, and they told me I was eating too many vegetables.
Stop it! That's not a thing.
They were like, you need to eat fewer vegetables. That will help. And I was like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go through that one again. And they were like, you can't digest vegetables anymore. And I was like,
oh, that's really sad.
Is that what's happening? And because I used to, because we're of the 5. Well, you're a bit younger than me, but I'm definitely very much in the like I was at the point where there were like 5 portions of fruit and veg, and they really were starting to whack you. Whereas you're like a bit younger, and it's a bit more like actually it's 8 and be a selectarian and a pescatarian. Like no, I'm just like as long as you're eating 5, you've done your job, right? And so I would always have 2 or 3 portions of vegetables at breakfast, right? On the rationale, if I did 2 or 3 portions of vegetables at breakfast, maybe have a piece of fruit for a snack. If I had 1 at lunch, I was done. I could have whatever I wanted for dinner. Not necessarily the healthiest attitude, but nevertheless.
That's pretty good going.
Right? So like I'd have like a dal for breakfast, you know, and it's got lentils and another thing in, and it's really good for you, and it's filling, and it would, no, that was poisoning me. So now
dal.
I love dal. So I can't eat any wheat anymore.
Oh.
I can't have any dairy. I can't eat any green vegetables. If I eat lettuce, if I eat lettuce, I might as well have eaten a bowl of broken glass in terms of how much I'm enjoying myself 30 minutes later when it hits my stomach lining. And lettuce, not something I necessarily thought to myself, oh, I'll seek out some lettuce. But one day I was like, do you know what I really like? Caesar salad. That's good for me. No, had a bowl and I was literally curled up in the fetal position going, my life is miserable.
What on earth do you eat then?
A lot of, basically, I eat a lot of Mexican food that I've made for myself.
Oh, yum. Okay.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like, again, like, it's a lot of Mexican, a lot of Puerto Rican, a lot of Colombian, because it's like, what can I do with corn? I can still eat beans.
Oh, good.
Corn, beans, eggs. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, and I can eat like nightshades, so I can eat like tomatoes and aubergines. So I'm
Oh,
like,
you can. Okay,
onions.
that's
So I'm
good.
like, bang this all together. Basically, it's today I'm having a tortilla. Tomorrow I'm having an arepa. It's the same thing in different shapes.
Yeah, but they're all tasty.
Tasty, delicious shapes. But it's
They are.
incredibly inconvenient in terms of walking around food. Oh, I
Yeah.
can still eat rice as well, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like walking around food's hard. And because I'm away from home 3 days a week, staying in hotels and stuff, I basically just eat eggs and fruit when I'm not home.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, scrambled eggs are delicious. Fruit is delicious. If you can find someone that'll give you bacon and eggs, you know.
Yeah.
But yes, so yeah, long COVID, diet strange, enormous amount of black coffee. Like,
that's what you need.
terrifying amount of black coffee. But I've been having that for ages. Like at one point I was working with someone, and she'd only ever worked with me remotely. And so she was in the office, and I poured myself a cafetiere, and she looked at me and she was like, "Who are you sharing that with?" And I was like, "What are you talking about, Debbie?" And she was like, "You've got like a full cafetiere there. Who are you sharing that with?" And I was like, "No, this is for this meeting." And she was like, "What do you mean this is for this meeting?" And I was like, "Well, I'm going to need a full cafetiere of coffee to get through this meeting. And then at the end of this meeting, I'm going to make another." And she just looked at me like, "I don't think that's a good idea, Joel." And I was like, you know, "Oh, yeah, no, that's a very good idea, Debbie."
You should have been like, "They took away my letters. They're not taking away my coffee."
I mean, you know, we have this relationship, and obviously we're in touch and stuff. Like, but I started working with someone during COVID, and after 3 months, she was new, and she was working for me, so she had to wait till she got to the end of her probation before she like tested the waters. So she gets to the end of the 3 months, and then she's feeling like she's got her feet under the table. We can't sack her straight away. And she said to me, "Joel, how do you think working from home during COVID has affected you?" And it took me a minute to work out what she was talking about, because obviously I have to live like this. And I was like, oh no, Osmer, I see what the problem is. No, I'm like this all the time. I was like this before. And she, honestly, she looked like she'd been hit by, she looked like she'd had a bucket of cold water thrown in her face. She looked horrified. And I thought that was hilarious, right? So the next meeting I have with her is like 2 hours later, and in it is a girl who'd worked for me in a previous team, who I'd poached out of that team because she wasn't paid well enough. And so she knew what she was getting into. You know, she could have gone, "Oh, he's got promoted. He's left. Thank God for that." But no. She chased the money and accepted that she was going to have to tolerate me. I said to her, "Oh, Sabrina, you'll never guess what she said." She said, "How do you think COVID's affected you?" And I said, "No, I'm like this all the time." And she pulled that face because at this point, this poor woman is mortified that I've laughed in her face during this, and also realizes she shouldn't have asked. And the other girl looks at her and she's like, "To be honest with you, he's worse in person."
You can't hit mute in person. I mean, you can, but that's rude.
Yeah. I was like, "No, I am. Yeah, you can't mute me. Also, I like to do things like walk up behind people and let their chairs down." You just hear this. For God's sake.
Do you like to play pranks in the office, like hiding googly eyes on things and things?
Yeah. That's part of my role. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
some people.
At a place that I worked at, there was this person who was literally employed as like the hype woman of the company. She would spend a ton of money on like trips and events and stuff, but like just for her core team. So like her core team would live in La Vida Loca. The rest of us were like, "We just want like a 3 pence pay rise," and they're like, "No, we can't afford it because this woman's going on holiday with her team or whatever." And then
she's taking them to Vegas.
It was like that, and it was like,
but that's what we've told them. They're actually going to Tijuana, Mexico. Only 7 are coming back. It's like the Hunger Games, but with tequila.
She was like, that was her whole deal, and she didn't really impact enough people. She just impacted the other hype team members, and they were all really hyped to hype everybody up, but they didn't have the budget to hype anybody else up. So, yeah. Anyway,
that's life. So, for those of you who haven't met me before, it's going to be like this for the rest of the thing.
Yes.
This podcast is very confusing to me, because I listen to it as I do all things at 1.6 speed. So even the intro, the music played, and I was like,
It's taking.
Oh yeah, this is what it's supposed to sound like. It's like I slide into it like boop 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 ding 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 ding, and you're like, "Hello, Joel," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's actually the speed Saffron talks at when she's
normal
not talking to the computer."
Yeah, hello, Blake. I should speed up the intro because sometimes it does feel like it's the build up of the intro to when I have to then go, oh, I'm here, hello. And I think it would just be better if we did a cold open.
I mean,
maybe I should do a cold open. Although I need those couple of seconds to take a sip of my drink. Remind myself who I'm talking to.
In the zone. Don't you know? You're doing me a favor. Let's not
Yeah.
So I certainly wouldn't recommend that anybody shape their life around my preferences because that would be bloody mental.
I don't think the world could take it if there were multiple.
It'd be very stressful.
Yeah, it would. It would. So, at the risk of
Should we talk about writing?
Subject.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd mention your writing just for a moment. You published a whole ton of stuff last year.
I did. Yeah.
You did. You were a busy person because I remember when we spoke. It must have been the beginning of 2025, if not the end of 2024. I can't remember.
I think it's end of 24, but it's a 25 podcast, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. So it's been over a year since we've spoken. And you were like, I'm working on this, I'm working on that, I'm working on this. Did you publish all of those things, or because loads of them are really close together?
Yeah, no, mate. I've still got stuff on the stocks.
I'm not surprised. You're never going to run out of ideas.
Oh no, I've not got no. So yeah, let's do story of 25. I've actually got. Hang on.
I thought you were walking down the stairs.
Yeah, no, I've got, I disappear off downside. Right, so what to talk about? Right, we'll do a quick overview. Right, things I'm super proud of. Right, I've got 3 shorts in different anthologies. Some of these might still be knocking around. So if people are into this sort of stuff as I describe it, go and get it. I'll do that one last.
Okay.
There's this anthology here called Big Smoke Pulp.
Okay.
Right, it's volume 1.
That's thick.
Adriano, very clever man. It is. I mean, it's a honker, isn't it? Right. It's a book like a brick. The little sort of what I would call like a hand-sized paperback format. Really lovely. It's from this publisher called Pesto Comics. Adriano, who's the publisher for it, and is like the writer for Pesto, does a really interesting podcast actually, where you go on as a writer. He spins up like 3 or 4 prompts, and then he and the one of his artists do a single-page comic during the podcast live.
That's
so
cool.
Like 2 hours, you do it live whilst you talk about basically the podcast, the format of writing, whatever like is your bag, right? So I did one of those. It was so much fun because I've never written comics before. It's actually where I started. The first thing I tried to write properly was a comic, and it was a disaster because I didn't know what I was doing. I was 16. But but so interesting, like to actually like I like a collaboration as much as I like being on my own because I'm a bit chatty. But so Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1, he kickstarted it, filled it, got all the extensions and stuff, and basically put out this absolute brick, which is he says stories cross genres from sci-fi to noir, romance to fantasy, horror to old-fashioned thrillers, right? So basically, if you love pulp, and I love pulp, it's got a proper like pulpy cover on the front. That's great. Volume 2 is still in Kickstarter right now, or might have just finished, but you can probably jump on at the end. I've got 1 in there as well, and I think possibly, because I've been talking to him, a couple more in the sort of like reach stretch goals.
That's cool.
So mine in 1 is called it's called The Black Widow, and it's like a take on I like LA noir, like that's like sort of my thing in noir. That's like it's like my grounding in that genre. So it's a bit like Michael Connelly, but it's also like, I mean, it's a bit mad because it's me, right? Second one, which people can go and get, this beauty. This is called Lesbians in Space.
That's a fantastic cover.
Fantastic cover. It's Lesbians in Space. They got enough stories, enough kicks. Again, it's kickstarted to do 2 things. So the subtitle for the first issue is Where No Man Has Gone Before, which I thought was hilarious.
Fabulous.
Right. I just realized there's 1 more on the book deck. But the particularly beautiful thing about this, as an indie author, is that the table of contents includes, and I shall make sure I get people's names because, oh no, it's not going to do that. So it's got Mary Robinette Cowell, whose Lady Astronomer series is just out of this world.
Mhm.
It's got a guy called Travis Baldry who wrote Lies and Legends, which you might have seen knocking around. Shauna Maguire's in it, and there is one other person. But basically, they came up with the idea, I think, at a fantasy sci-fi conference, and managed to get 4 Hugo-nominated writers to put stories in it in order that it got kickstarted. So I'm like the least famous person in the anthology, but I got in volume 1.
That's very cool.
That's out there. It's called Lesbians in Space. My one is, yeah, my one's crackers. It's about coercive control in relationships.
Oh, my fave.
Yeah.
Not my fave, obviously not my favorite, but like as a subject.
Yeah. Coercive control in relationships and fungal computers.
Oh, that's cool.
Hash those 2 things together and see what you've got.
Nice.
Right. And then my third thing, which is like the most beautiful thing that I own, is this one. This is on Air and Nothingness, and it's called Ardust Earth. Air and Nothingness is one of, if not my favorite indie press, because Todd, who does their stuff, is a poet and he's a writer, and all their books come with these gorgeous gatefolds.
Oh, that's pretty.
So they are works of art. They are so beautiful. I'd submitted to him before and got onto the shortlist and not got there. That was incredibly validating, but also at that point it's also incredibly frustrating, right? Because you're like, oh, so close, so beautiful. But then I got into this one, and it's a shared setting, basically. So all the stories are set in the same shared setting. Mine is about, like a lot of my stuff, there's a bit of like what are names for. It's kind of like dystopian. It's a bit like Mad Max versus Warhammer 40,000 as a story, but in the most gorgeous packaging. So there are still some of those knocking around. Some of the stories in here are like mind-blowingly good. So if you were into that sort of stuff, might recommend that.
Cool.
Then, in addition to that, and there's poetry knocking around, there's various bits. We might talk about poetry in a minute. I put out like a whole series of stuff all in one go. I like vomited it up, right? So this is the draft for the novels, Gates of Inspiration, right? And basically, Gates of Inspiration started off as a short story that turned into like 20 or 30 short stories, and then I submitted them somewhere, and the publisher came back and said, they liked the quality of the writing, but it didn't like, basically, it was novella length, and they were like, novellas are incredibly hard to sell. Short story collections are incredibly hard to sell. So a novella length set of short stories, like they were like, it doesn't matter. Basically, it doesn't matter how good the writing is at that point, unless you're Stephen King, ain't gonna work. And it's like, okay, that's an interesting point, like something I didn't know. But I went away and I looked at it again. And I was like, actually, there's a novel in here. It's hiding, but it's in here. So I took the first story that I'd written off the front of it, and I tore some pieces out, and I realized that I'd got a novel, like I'd got pieces of the novel, and if I once I worked out what the actual arc was that it was sitting on, first I realized the shape, and then I realized like the ending, and then I could write the ending, and then I could go back and slot in the pieces that it needed. So it's got this so I'm really pleased with it. So it's told in a short story style, so some of the chapters are longer than others. The viewpoints change, which is something I've experimented with before. But it's also got this really deliberate inflection point where there's only one chapter that is told from the perspective of the character that in any other version of this story, they'd be the protagonist and probably close to third or first person. But actually, you get a first person chapter right in the middle of the keystone, which like, if like it propels the story forward, but if read correctly, it actually tells you everything you need to know about the world and the world building and the motivations of the characters. And I'm like, when I did it, I felt like the key turn and the things fall in.
That's cool.
So I was really pleased with that. But in addition to that, I'd released previously in the same setting, like a novelette that I'd written, which is called A Many-Winged Retreat, which is about like it's straight up and down sword and sorcery quest, basically. But there's there's undead dinosaurs, there's all sorts of like wacky stuff just sort of thrown in. And in doing that, I realized that I got other like shorter stories to tell. So there's all of the short stories that got torn out of Gates of Inspiration, and loads more short stories that I've written in the setting to sort of explore other things or other ideas are in a short story collection called Across a Trackless Plain, and then there are 3 novelette type things, 2 of which focus on my favorite character that I've invented so far, who is a type A personality necromancer who has got extremely severe ADHD. So she's a functioning sociopath because her ADHD is so severe that she just can't function. And so basically she's become the most powerful necromancer in existence in order to stop her getting bored. But the problem is that she's constantly getting bored. So by the time you get deeply into the book, she's got a best friend who is who drinks to stop remembering that she's also a necromancer. Her medicine for that is just basically constantly self-medicating, but her self-appointed role is stopping her mistress from breaking everything just to find out what would happen. And so that's she's so much fun to write, because it's like anytime you think what's the most abhorrent thing you could do in this situation, she might do it because it's funny to her just for a moment, and because I'm a person who I'm like, oh, this is funny to me. I'll write something like that. But sometimes she will help people, either because it's benevolent or because it will annoy someone else. And to her, those 2 things are basically the same. So she operates in a realm of perfect self-interest, but at the same point is also fundamental to sort of progressing a healthy society. So she's loads of fun to write. She has a very strong moral code, but her moral code is I'm right and you're wrong. So that's a great character to write. But if people are into basically it's very madcap, it's quite zany, it's a bit heisty. But yeah, if you like The Witcher, but I wish it didn't take itself quite so seriously. Also, if it was The Witcher, but it didn't take itself quite so seriously, and it was a lot more violent, and also occasionally stuff that really doesn't belong in The Witcher just comes in, and it the world building is actually very deliberate. So if there's a thing in there, it's in there for a reason. I actually have had 2 poems just about to be published, actually set in the same setting.
Oh, cool.
One is coming out in Specpo verse. Actually, that one is already out, and one is just about to come out in Heroic Fantasy Quarterly, because of course, when I read a lot of poetry, because I tell myself that I'm a poet, and so I read a really great collection of English language haiku, and I was like, this is a really interesting format that I've not come across before. What could I use it for? And the answer was telling the story of a witch diving to the bottom of the sea. So you've got a haiku which is set on that, and then in Heroic Fantasy Quarterly, I was knocking around with free verse and Eddic style. So I have characters who are more Nordic, but so when they're in action, they're particularly in the place that they are, time stretches and flows. So I was able to use the poetic style for that. But then when the fight starts, it's 6 beat Scotch snap, really deliberately mechanically rhythmical to represent the tempo of the fight and the tempo of this character's ideas of heroism. So yeah, having fun with that. I'm going to pause now, Saffron, because otherwise, as you know, I will just literally talk for 40 minutes.
No, you're fine. I was just fascinated to hear you talk about it, because you think very quickly. You're a fast thinker, and you were also very committed to doing all of the things that you want to do, which I really, really appreciate, because I am a fast thinker, but I also then tangle myself up in my mind and then don't actually do anything. So it's just fascinating to see somebody that's outwardly very energetic and full of ideas, but actually committing yourself to bringing those things to life. And also they're fully formed and well thought out things. They're not things that have been rushed through, which is fascinating, because I suppose I don't know how many times in your life you've been told that you're fascinating. I'm sure it's more than one, but you don't meet a lot of people that are able to give something of quality and with depth, and also be the fastest publisher of things that I know.
Yeah.
So
so it's going to be slower this year, because last year was last year was incredibly chaotic for work, and my work has like peaks and troughs anyway. So I'll say what I got done, like in 2025 creatively, and then you'll be like, no, Joel, that's still fine, and I'll be like, yes, but remember, 2024 was different.
Yeah.
So 2025, I put out, I published a lot, right? But what did I actually write? Like, what's the fundamentals there? And there isn't answer to that. So I wrote, what did I write in 2025? So I was working at the start of 2025. I was working really hard on a couple of ideas. One of which is like a left wing, like a sort of a very lefty, like Reacher versus Rambo First Blood, but it's not propaganda. And it sort of like takes a very deliberate view about like the way that soldiers coming back from war are depicted in mass media, but also treated by the societies into which they come back into. Now, so I appreciate, you're living in the States, but you're English, so you are seeing both sides of this. I'm in England, but a keen observer of the Americas. But I would say that, over the last 20 years, in the UK particularly, so I won't try and speak to the other experience right now. Charities sprung up that were all about like helping, in inverted commas, the survivors of and the people that had been participants in let's go with Afghanistan and Iraq without me applying any color that I might normally apply to that, right, for the purpose of the audience, right? So, but the British state en masse, it is a democracy, sent soldiers to fight in a different country. Right? You can explore why that was, or whether there were good reasons, any of that, right? But the bold facts of the matter are, we have a democracy. Soldiers were sent, soldiers came back, and then there is an expectation that charity is the solution to solving any of the, like, if we acknowledge that there are any residual issues from putting soldiers into a conflict in a different country, then what issues that we are willing to accept are there, which will more than likely be things that are physically obvious rather than more holistic, will be dealt with by charities, not by the state that put them into that situation. And whilst at the same time, England has definitely acquired, and England, I will say England rather than the UK as a whole, has definitely acquired the more American attitude of thank you for your service. So we have to simultaneously put people from the armed forces on a pedestal and say to them that theirs is the most important social task that you can do, whilst concurrently not acknowledging that task has in it quite substantial risks. You are asked that, like, after you volunteer, because it's a volunteer army, but after you volunteer to participate, you are then asked to take risks which you cannot control. And in fact, if you don't take those risks, you can go to prison. So, you're not really being asked to do it. And at the end of it, basically, the enormous proportion of homeless people in the UK, enormous proportion of people with disabilities, enormous proportion of people with untreated mental health issues are veterans of armed conflict. And so I think that dichotomy, and I detest the fact, because I'm very left wing, I detest the fact that we depend on people's charity and say to people, oh, well, actually, you can pay less tax if you help do the social burden. I'm like, no, like, surely we as a democracy created this social burden. Surely it's on us as a democracy to solve it. Apparently, not popular opinion. So I wanted to take that and like the ideas around, like, the way that police are presented, particularly in countries and the Anglosphere, where the role of police and policing for its own sake is being more thoroughly examined and explored. And that role of, like, what is the purpose of soldiering and what's the imperial boomerang effect and all those sorts of things, and try and tell, like, a very kinetic, compelling story. And I started as a screenplay. Turns out I can't write screenplays. There's a technique to it that I haven't learned yet. Okay. So then I was like, well, what I'll do is I'll turn it into prose, because I know I can write prose. And then I have friends who are screenwriters, and I'm like, if it's a compelling story for screen, we'll go back. Saffron, I'm still only 30,000 words into it. It's driving me fucking mental. Started in January. Haven't finished it, right?
Why?
Why? Because work got in the way, basically. And it was, I had 3 or 4 months where I didn't write a word, because, like, of any form.
Oh wow.
Except Except the only thing that I did last year that I stuck to religiously, because I was like, I will not let anything else interfere, is I wrote a poem a week for, there's a poetry magazine called Rattle, and they have a poem a week competition basically to write about current affairs. I wrote a poem a week, entered it into that, at least one a week, entered it into that, didn't get any selected, but like part of the discipline was like writing a poem a week and style that I wanted to write about something I was interested in. And at the end of the year, put all of those together and publish them. So like, if people saw the intro page, they'll have seen like Untimely Poetry 2. There is a poem per week. There's somewhere in the region of 60. It's more than 52.
Yeah.
Poems about things that happened last year. So I'm got to do a reformat at some point, but it's basically like you can go back to the year and look at it retrospectively. And some of the poems are very political, because if you're writing about current affairs from a certain perspective, they will be political. Others of them, I mean, are silly limericks about, I mean, also, actually, to be fair, the more serious the subject matter is, the more likely it is a coin flip that it'll be like a silly limerick.
I read your year in review collection, and some of them, I've said this before with poets, I don't know enough about the craft to be able to determine like what style it is or whether or not it's any good. And there were some where I thought, I have no idea what any of this means. I learned some new words, can't remember them. But I noticed that throughout the year, did you say that you put them in order of the year?
Yeah, they're in order.
Okay.
Yeah.
So throughout the year, I could see some like ebbs and flows of your frustration with the world, and obviously some personal things, because you have some personal things within this collection.
Oh, yeah.
It seems to be a really good way of you processing stuff, because although you are very like chipper a lot of the time, like life is not, it's not all, you know, roses and rainbows and all that sort of shit. So do you find that having an outlet like that helps you to be able to process those emotions that you might not necessarily outwardly do because you're quite a jovial person?
Yeah, absolutely. So like so my oldest son, Oscar, he's 12, is chronically ill. Like he's really, really ill. And my wife is a person who fixates on stuff, and she lets the emotions like tumble through her, and then she'll have days or weeks, months where she's not sleeping well because she's so worried about like the very real and much higher percentage than you would want catastrophic things that could happen to Oscar. Right? That is not an unreasonable way. I think it's quite a normal way of trying to work through those emotions. Right? I am very much a jam stuff in a box, pretend it's not happening person, which in some ways helps me keep chipper. But the other thing, and we may have talked about this before, the other thing that I have got going for me that Jenny doesn't, is that I invent people who I then murder in horrible ways. Like, Jenny's like, oh my God, I've got my imagination running this, and I'm imagining a scenario where bad thing happens to Oscar, right? And, you know, unfortunately, as I say, it's possible that bad things will happen to him, right? I imagine a person that isn't real. That my little novelette, for instance, my novelette Apprentice to Death's Mistress, starts with a man who has been impaled to almost death, and he's stuck on the impaling spike, dying. And he is chained to the, as it turns out, dead body of his wife, also impaled to death. It's sort of her fault, and he has gone mad and thinks she's still alive, at which point a necromancer turns up and asks him if he'd like to get down. And I think I'd have to look at the text, but I'm pretty sure she's like, that looks like it hurts, as like an opening piece of narrative, right? So, you know, bad things could happen to Oscar. I'm pretty confident a shaman isn't going to impale him on living bamboo as punishment for like some sort of like religious transgression. I mean, it might. He's my son, so
it's not zero, but it's very low.
It's a non-zero chance, but it's a lot closer to zero than some of the things that could go wrong. I've actually got a poem. I've literally just agreed. There's a poem coming out in Thistle and Thread. Thistle and Thread on Friday, which I wrote on Christmas Day last year, because Oscar we went into hospital on the 20 2nd of December. He was hospitalised
Mhm.
for a week, so we were in on Christmas Day. I actually crashed the car on Christmas Day morning coming back out of the hospital.
Oh my God.
You should, if in the hospital car park, it's notoriously tricky, but you bring your kid home for the 6 hours he's allowed out of hospital. You turn up on Christmas Day, your wife's already in splinters, and you're like, oh yeah, by the way, I actually crashed it twice because I crashed it and I was so tired I didn't realise I'd done it, so I just crashed it again back into the same thing.
Oh no.
Not a highlight, really, but like because like that's the situation which would normally, like, that would be the thing that would rev my stress out. And I just looked at Jenny and I was like, it's Christmas Day, nothing's open, we'll deal with it in 2 days' time. And she was like, so afterwards she was like, I was actually really appreciative. She was like, I wasn't pleased that you'd done it, but like you didn't bring any stress into the house. You just went, that's a stress for future Joel. Let's come in and do 6 hours of Christmas. So I've got this poem, as I say, it's coming out on Friday. If people want to understand a little bit about basically how fundamentally broken I am as a human being, that's a good place to read. Apparently the ending's got a bit of a kick in the guts.
Good. I could do with a good cry.
Good cry, yeah, that's what you want, right? Yeah, as I say, I'm like, I'm a little bit wild. I thought, here's the thing that I thought we'd do. Right, we're 42 minutes in, right?
Oh my God.
I know. This is what being with me is like, right? Time flies. No one's sure if they're having fun or not. I've got a little Draben, 100-word short story.
Yeah.
And my first introduction to you for that series that I just talked about, Gates of Inspiration, which I call 9 Realms, was a short story that's on my YouTube channel, which people should go and listen to if they want to find out what it's like, which is called Go Fly a Kite. And when I sent it you were like, oh! And then you came back to me like 20 minutes later and you're like, Joel, that wasn't what I was expecting. You said this was Go Fly a Kite. And I was like, he flies a kite.
It's a trick.
This one is not as bleak, but it's a 100-word Draben. I love a Draben, like 100 words, like just trying to like nail the whole story front to back. And it's called The Conquering Moon, the Hungry Dove. When was the last time you slept? The witch chewed on sooty fingers, staring into the eyes of demons in other realms. Sleep, muttered the summoner. I remember sleep. An otherworldly chuckle echoes around Logothete's questioning room, fractured by shark fangs and the gap between realms. Master Shushwilly draws an Abeladen playing card from his pocket. On its face, a sleeping moon and a dove. Come to me, Sishi, the master implores. The witch bursts apart, reindeer horns crowning through his unlined brow, flesh reforming around tattered meat. Now we're getting somewhere. In the face of horror, only purpose remains.
Bloody hell. You didn't even skip a beat either. If I would have read something, I'd have been like,
Yeah, but to be fair, I wrote it.
I can read the stuff that I've written and I still struggle a bit. Do you enjoy the performance part of sharing stuff? Because I know that you've recorded a few of your... you did the audiobooks for The Littlest Kingdom, right?
I did the audiobooks for The Littlest Kingdom, yeah. That's like a twofold decision. First is getting someone to read your stuff it's grotesquely expensive, right? And we have to be realistic. I bought myself an expensive microphone so that people could hear me at work. But like, I particularly like the Littlest Kingdom stuff. I wrote in part, so I had stories to tell to my children, right? Littlest Kingdom, woohoo! I got like a Tales from the Littlest Kingdom. There's 9 stories now. 3 of them are on, well, actually, no, there's 10. There are 10 stories now because one is available on Nimblewit, which is a kids magazine website.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I also, because I like to do it, I read the story for that. So you can download it as an MP3, you can go and read it. It's free. Brilliant, right? 3 of them I've read and are on my YouTube channel. They don't have demons bursting out of people yet. Who knows? I could make that kid friendly if I tried.
I think you could.
Yeah.
I feel like you've got the skill set for it.
Yeah. So you got to have something, right? And I did those because like they're my most expensive failure. Right? We fail all the time as writers and creators, right? The sales on those books, I am so proud of them. I love them to pieces.
I think they're fantastic.
Fuck me, I can't sell it. Cannot give them away. Staff cannot give them away. So I was like, you know what?
understand that.
I've written them. I've already spent the money.
Mhm.
Like, because I spent the money on the artwork, and the artwork is gorgeous.
Yeah,
I think it's
really
gorgeous anyway.
sweet.
I was really pleased with it.
Mm.
So I was like, do you know what? I didn't write them to make money. I wouldn't mind getting the money back that I spent on them. But you know, I wrote a poem that went into American Journal of Nursing, which is on the experience of having long COVID.
Mhm.
Like, that's the best paid thing I've done words per se.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I now get loads of emails inviting me to like medical conferences because my email address is just being scraped. But like, the people that do medical conferences like, would you like to contribute on the future of and I'm like, no, and you should not be asking me.
Yeah, I'll come in and cough on you.
Would you like my long COVID? So yeah. But yeah, so compared to that, like, you know, if I was doing this for, you know, I could write more pieces like that, and I'm pretty sure I could sell them. This, however, is a labor of love. And then I thought, you know what? I actually love reading to my kids. Like, I got back into reading after like a long delay. Got back into writing after a long delay, having always wanted to do it because I wanted stories that I wanted to tell to my children. And these are not those stories necessarily, but these are like a reflection of that love for telling stories. Telling stories for telling stories' sake, and telling stories to children because they're an amazing audience. And basically, like, if only my nieces and nephews and kids ever hear these stories, then that's how it is. But I did 3 on YouTube, so people can go and watch them for free. If you like them, you can download the ebooks, you can buy them in paperback format. But if you like them and you're like, this is a great way of entertaining my kids for 3 to 4 minutes and then learning a new word. My favorite word in all the books is abacadarian, which is someone that teaches people the alphabet. I love that. But you just go and do it. And like, you know, I had fun doing it. And I did the audiobooks as well, of which there are 3. I haven't done any more because in order for me to feel compelled to do any more, I would have to sell some.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, but you've very kindly brought up my thing. Speaking of what compels me to do things, before I circle back to anything else, Path of Fire and Glory, right-hand side there. I wrote that last year. That was actually pretty much the main thing that I wrote and got out last year. Right. I wrote this book, Path of Pain and Ruin. It was the first thing that I finished, first thing that I put out. Then I accidentally wrote a sort of sequel sidebar to it called Paths to Empire's Ends, which is a sort of a short story collection that also does a sort of like novel arc in short stories. It's a bit mad. It's a bit madcap.
From you?
I know. But structurally, it's not something I've seen done before. So I'm going to claim that I've invented it. Right? As like,
why
that's
not?
like,
Yeah.
Sound off in the comments if you disagree. I can't see the comments, so I don't fucking care. and if you're listening to this in podcast form, it's too late to disagree with me. You're in the future. But so I put that book on. I put Pain and Ruin. I put it on sale for like 99p over Christmas a couple of years ago because I was like, again, right? I had a friend do the cover for me. I wrote it. There's no on costs. I just want people to read it because I've enjoyed writing it. I'm told it's entertaining. Right? So it gets picked up during the course of last year, maybe 24. Gets picked up anyway and gets reviewed in Grimdark magazine, which is pretty much the best place to get reviewed if you're writing a Grimdark book. And it was a really positive review.
That's nice.
And so 2 days after that happens, after the review comes out, I'm not aware of this. And I'm working, so like unusually for me, not addicted to my social media. And so I look at my book sales and they've taken this big step up out of nowhere. And I say big step up, like they've gone from like 1 every few days to like suddenly I'm sold 3 in back-to-back days or something like that. And I'm like, that's weird. There must be an explanation for this that isn't pricing related because I haven't changed the prices. And when I do change the prices, except for Christmas, that one time, there's no fucking impact, right? Because I'm not important enough for people to know if I've changed the prices. Ergo, price change doesn't drive readership, right? You know, if you're Stephen King and you drop it 99p, I bet you get loads of sales.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So I was like, that's strange. Then I log into my Twitter and I've got like a tag in the review, and it's really nice, right? Like it's very positive. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's really nice. And then I contacted the reviewer and was like, look, I just want to say thank you because I can see my Kindle page reads going up, I can see my sales going up, and this is after like a week. And it's like, I'm like, you know, it's actually like made a real difference to how many people are reading this book, and I'm really grateful. And she came back to me and she was like, yeah, look, no, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to look at the second one. But after I finished it, what I really regret not knowing is when she told me what she wanted to know. And I was like, well, the thing is, I know what happens right? Because when I finished it at a specific point, knowing how the story went on and knowing what the rest of the world build was like.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if it's unsatisfying, that's not there. I could have a swing at just because I know it doesn't mean I can write it down, as I've discovered with my other stuff, right? But so I sat down and I tried to write it out, and because I've got an end point, I've got a start point. So I was like, okay, well, you've got two of the pretty important bits, so you know what the straight line is to get there. Unlike some of my books, I didn't have a list of characters I had to murder. I'll come back to that in a minute. And I wrote it, and then I put it out. And frankly, if you've read the first one and then you've read the second one in its weird structure, and you've liked them both enough to like the third one, it's better reviewed in terms of its current very small number of reviews, but Goodreads rating than the other two, because basically only people that really like the first two will read the third. So it looks like I'm improving as a writer, but I don't think that's the case. I think I'm selecting out of the negative curve. But that's how it is. And then we have these two beauties, right? Which again, one of them's up.
Super intrigued by your choice on this one.
Talk to me.
Where did you, at what point in your life were you like, I'm going to write a sapphic dark fantasy?
So the sapphic one comes after the first one.
Oh, they're not both sapphic. Okay, I missed that bit.
No, sorry. Right. So, first one, after I put out Path, I'm starting to learn about book talk and podcast and all this sort of stuff that I got no idea about, because I'm just surrounded by books and my own thoughts, right? And I discovered that the Sarah J. Maas stuff is very popular, and remains weirdly people complaining about certain things. I don't really understand it, but so I got the first one and I read it, and I was like, well, that's the sort of, I have views on it that are not necessarily widely shared, but I read it. I'm definitely not the target audience for it. I've read other stuff. I definitely talked when I was last year about a book called The Erstwhile Tyler Kyle, for which I'm not the target audience, and which everybody should go and buy because I think it's great. Conversely, actually, Ellen Holmes is on here. I am the target audience for her book, and it's great. So you should go out and get that. Really enjoyed it. But yeah, so I'm looking at all this, this is how we market these books. It's all tropey, right? And I'm like, okay, I don't even know. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to work it out, right? Because, as you said, I try and work stuff out. And I worked out that actually, if I took certain things, certain building blocks that were being talked about, and I applied my style to it, I could write something that was true to myself and true to the sort of stories that I want to tell, and the sort of themes and leitmotif and linguistic stuff that I want to be using, but that use those building blocks. And so in some ways it would be more commercially legible than some of the crackpot stuff that I do, while simultaneously, in theory, holding that waterline. And I sat down and I wrote it, and it was actually, it's the first time I've ever actually had I'm definitely a discovery writer. Yeah. Right. A big chunk of, there's one of my novelettes is called Necromancer Supreme. I wrote 2/3 of that novelette in 40 minutes, sitting in church, sitting through because my kids are these really gifted musicians, right? So they're in the kids' school stuff, right? But their school goes from reception, so for Americans that's pre-K, all the way through to year 13, which is pre-university. So it's all one school, and they're in the middly bit where they're in the young kids stuff and the older kids stuff, because they're gifted enough to be in the older kids stuff, but they're young enough to be in the younger kids stuff, which means at Christmas you have to sit through the same bloody church service 3 times. Jenny works at the school. She goes 5 times, and the poor head teacher, and I've been going to these things for years, so I've heard the sermon so many times. And also I was at faith-based school, right? So I've heard the sermon. So I'm sitting there I can't deal with this. And a joke popped into my head that I was like, definitely keep that to yourself, because the headmistress was a friend of mine. I was like, maybe I'll tell her later, but don't say it now. And then another joke. And at this point, I've got this string of jokes and flights of imagination. And I literally wrote in my head for the length of the sermon, all the bits my kids weren't involved, because I know I can zone out. I don't care about what the other kids do, and I only care about my ones. And I wrote the whole book, and I literally was like, when we got out of the church, I was like, right, let's go. And they were like, why are you in such a hurry? And I was like, no reason. I'm definitely trying to hold all of the jokes and plot this whole bloody novella in my head. But other than that, that was the second time. This was the first time I've ever done structured architectural front to back. I know broadly how I knew pretty close to how it finished. Well, I knew exactly how it finished. And then there was a little bit of fuzz. And then I had all the beats. I wrote this book called They Who Receive.
Mhm.
It's a love story. It's about like, I mean, it's literally like prince meets princess. Like in principle, it's prince meets princess. One of them falls instantly in love with the, and then the other one doesn't. But there's lots of stuff going on about like gender roles and societal expectations and where we see value in each other and like what deterministic religious structures do to societies. Right. So obviously, all my shit is in there. Right. But it's set in the same world that Path of Pain and Ruin, Path to Empire's Ends, and Path to Fire and Glory are.
Cool.
The one of the two protagonists in this story is an adherent to that religion, but it's like 500 or 600 years in the future. So part of it is about how, like, if you look at, like, if you think about the way that, for example, pre-Roman Imperial or like early Roman Imperial Christianity was practiced in the Middle East before it moved into Europe and was basically infused with other European ideas and structures. And then you compare it to like the way that the Catholic Church was behaving in like 1400. They're fundamentally not the same thing. They are different religions with some of the same story beats. And so I was like, I'm going to take that idea because Fire and Glory and Pain and Ruin are set in this sort of like Greco bronze imperial collapse. I was like, okay, if you go from that, like go from the collapse of Athens and you take a religion from the collapse of Athens and you move it forward into sort of like, you know, early middle-aged, you know, setting.
Yeah.
How much has that transmutated? How much has that changed? What's there? So like that's in there to a certain extent propelling the story.
Yeah.
Right? And then, so I've just finished writing this and I sit down with my sister-in-law and she's like, you know, how's the writing going? I'm telling her. And she's like, what does Jenny think? She's my wife. And I was like, she hasn't read any. Right. And this is true. Right? I think I've got more than 35 books on Goodreads.
You must do. Yeah.
It's something like that because the kids' books are short, right? So, but like, I've put out a lot of stuff, right? And there's poetry and there's short stories, and it's in all sorts of places. In places behind paywalls, places that are free. There's, you know, there's limericks, there's weird jokes about like project management, like everything under the sun, right? It's there if you want to read it. My wife has not read a word that I've published. Not a word. And has no interest in doing so.
But you said that the types of books that she likes are totally different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Right. So, and actually, at the moment, she's changed book titles, which is actually quite frustrating. But because I've now got to read them to work out what it is that she likes about them, which I don't really want to do. But so I'm joking to my sister-in-law at the time. And I'm like, yeah, like this is the plot structure. These are the sort of arcs that Jenny likes. I describe them, and I'm like, and I don't write that. Like I write a different thing. And then I was just like, do you know what though? I've just written a completely different set of arcs. Used my stuff, did the arcs, right? And I'm already looking at like just generally more widely, like in a lot of my stuff. There's a lot of stuff about identity, and there's a lot of stuff about love, even like as like leitmotif, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this structure and going, but I can recite the beats in that structure back for back because I read 10 of those books when I was trying to convince Jenny to read one thing that I was interested in. And I read all 10, she didn't read any, and now they're in my head forever with everything else just rattling around in there. So then I wrote this, Murder which is a murder mystery plot. Like I always used to write, Jenny likes set in the past. Ideally, there's a war on. Someone's doing a relatively mundane job, like a job that you can look at and go, oh yeah, that's a job. I recognize that as being a job. Right? There's some sort of love story, and there's an impediment to that. Often it's the war or that someone's been murdered. Right? That is this book. Right? But it's not set in the past. It's set in, again, like an empire that's folding in on itself. It's kind of like, it's a bit like the city that it's set in is a bit like a sort of like Libya or like Tripoli or Casablanca type, you know, like it's the point at which your empire then steps into another continent in the way that Alexandria was for Rome, or that, you know, you might have like Gibraltar might have been for the Moors. It's the place where you've come over the sea and away from your land, and suddenly your supply lines are really stretched. So when things go tits up, that's the place, or like Calais actually for England, that's the place everything collapses back to. And oh, by the way, there's a king or an emperor in the distance who's going, you better not lose that, but you can't have any help. So the city is besieged by sort of a rising empire. Things have gone wrong out in the hinterlands that the locals don't really care about, because they've been living this sort of like privileged existence in like the richest city on the continent as far as they're concerned. They're completely assured that their religion is the right one and that somehow divine providence will help them. And then the baddies are at the gates. And but I like her character, you know, and again, this is really typical for this genre, right? So the character's got peculiar interest. She loves butterflies. That is pretty much at the start of the story. She cares about two things. She's a policeman because her family basically are like the founders of the police force, and she has decided that that's what she wants to do. And like, for reasons which will come clear later on, that should definitely not have been an option, but it is for reasons that she doesn't even understand. And she's really into butterflies, and she has received and you discover that she's received one of the religious blessings. So she's basically a living saint trying to solve a murder that's just happened whilst being obsessed with butterflies. And one of the things that I brought back from Past to Empire's End is like one of the important characters in there has the power to control butterflies. When she's been like effectively beatified, she can now control butterflies. Now that in the earlier versions is not a particularly useful thing and gets you killed pretty quickly. And she has worked out a way, because she's really interested in butterflies, to turn it into something really fucking horrifying. Oh, it's really grim, right? So you've got these three arcs that go through, but like I wanted to have multiple impediments to the relationship, and actually I thought having it's across ethnic barriers, it's across social classes, it's really intersectional, and of course it's across genders in a way that is somewhat taboo. It's one of those like, you can do it, just for God's sake don't talk about it. And if you get caught, you're in real trouble. So it's like it's at that point of social taboo structure. And yeah, when I got to, because I knew the ending, because the ending is, you know, you have to solve the murder. I didn't know who did the murder, but I knew that in the final denouement, it doesn't work unless you solve the murder. So I was like, okay, I'm working to that, right? I'm working to the war has to end in some way, shape, or form, or the love story has to resolve itself. Right? So you got these arcs across. And I get to this point, and I'm like, I've worked out who the murderer is, because I do not know when I start, because I don't know who any of the characters are. I've only got two characters at the start. Well, three. I'm like, she's got to fall in love with the widow when she gets down the hill. That's start chapter 2, right? So I've got three characters: her partner, because it's a police book, and the victim. Right. And I work out who's done it, and I'm like, okay, that's quite neat. I'm quite pleased with that. And it's not the person I thought it was. They enter the scene. I write the first chapter, and I was like, well, it definitely wasn't him, was it? Fuck. Now I've got, well, who was it? Which of you bastards is it? But so once I work out who it is, I wrote like the block, which has all the denouement, has like everything in. And then I was like, okay, well, now I just have to get, this was like what I thought was 2 chapters between where I'd finished writing and then where I'd restarted writing. And I wrote down all the characters, and I was like, okay. And I wrote down their outcomes, because I know what the outcome is now at the end. And, some of them went into a list of does not make it. And that's very freeing, because you're like, I've written about you earlier, you know, you've all got your unique character traits, you've got like, some of them are like soldiers or whatever, you know, they've got their role, they've got the role in the story, so their ending has to fit into the role of the story, it has to fit in. Very freeing though, because you've got all that information, you're like, who's next? But except the order. So literally the little bucket of people that are like not going to make it, I'm like, which of you's next to die? Who are you killing tonight? Haven't decided. It's going to be at least one of them, sometimes 2. Sometimes more than 2.
Are these 2 books, because they have very similar covers, are they like sequential, or are they in the same world?
Same world.
Okay.
Same style, similar themes. If you're into lesbian murder mystery in a siege, start with Mercy.
Okay.
If you're into classic boy meets girl, Romans versus Vikings versus Celts, religious examination, start with They Who. You can read them in either order. There's stuff that moves between the two, but you can literally, like, if you read bits of Mercy, then when you go to They Who, you'll be like, oh, this is interesting, because the religion and the gods and the way that things function are the same. Equally, you could read, particularly if you read Mercy first, and you were like, oh, that was really cool. That was like a sapphic romance. It was really dark. And then you're like, you know what? I'd really like just like more of the violence. You could go back and you'll see stuff that people don't necessarily understand in like Path of Pain and Ruin, where you'll actually you will understand more than the characters, because you will see the religion and the way that religion functions developing.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah.
It would be fair to say that I'm a third of the way through the next one of these. It's going to be like 3, and then it'll either be 3 and I'll stop, or I'll do 10, and I don't know. But which is called The Salvation Which Remains. I'm really pleased with where it is so far.
Cool.
I'm really pleased with where it is so far. Like, I've got a good hero, I've got a good heroine. Yeah. I cracked where I was with it recently. I like squeezed it, and the answer came out, and I was like, right. Okay.
Oh, that's cool. That's a good feeling. That's a really good feeling. Oh my goodness. What the heckins? I'm back. Can you hear me?
Now I'm on top.
What the hell happened?
I don't know.
Whatever. I'll stay down here.
You stay down there. I know what I could do.
Yeah, what?
Will you tolerate another what I can do?
Yeah.
Right, so as I was just saying.
Would I tolerate it?
I don't know, it's your show. Right, Mercy of Tenderness. City Under Siege. I've got a little short story that's set in the same setting. That is actually, it's for a writer friend of mine called Gwen that I wrote it. But it's like a little introduction to the world that you don't have to have read anything that I've read before to understand. At the moment, I don't have a title for it, which is quite unusual for me. So at the moment, it's just called First Glimpses.
Okay.
Normally the title's in here somewhere, but I haven't found it. So basically, if someone thinks of a title, let me know, because literally I don't start with the title. I never start with the title. So at the moment, it's called First Glimpses. The queue for Rottiflower stretched away from the silo, so long that even if he was tall enough to see over the women in front of him, Lano would not have been able to make out the front of the line. His hands were filthy, brick dust filling every crack and crevice. His mother would have scolded him. In the distance, another stone landed, launched by the enemy over the walls of the city. This far away, he could only imagine the screams. Nobody in the queue turned to look. A butterfly settled on the wall beside him, black eyes glaring from the backs of its wings. It fluttered back into the road, and he turned to watch its flight. It landed on the cap of the provost, escorting a beautiful woman past the queue, fingers interlaced. The provost was the shortest provost he'd ever seen. Normally they were big men, like the masons he worked with, not someone he could look in the eye if he stood on the tips of his toes. It took Lano a moment to realise the provost was a woman, all curves and softness, even during the siege. The other woman was pale as Lano, taller, beautiful. Her hair was bound up in a scarf, and she walked with a confidence that made his heart ache. Butterflies fluttered around her, spinning joyfully. His mother had owned a scarf like that. He'd put his hair up like that. Later.
The theme of butterflies is very prevalent, isn't it?
Butterflies is important to like this, but yeah, so like that's him seeing them. So it's like an outsider seeing their relationship, and it like. But yeah, it's also you know. But yeah, no, the butterflies are important. They're
two readings in one show. It's very kind of you.
I'm doing it. I'm doing my best.
Get my money's worth. So there are 2 questions that I usually ask people before the show ends. And the first one is, as a writer, what is your idea of success? What does it look like to you?
I'll come back to Fire and Glory, right? This will give you a feeling for where I am with it at the moment. It's got 2 bits.
Okay.
So a couple of weeks ago, someone emailed me and they said they'd read Pain and Ruin, they'd read Empire's End, but they didn't read ebooks. Did I have any plans to put Fire and Glory out as a paperback? Because they wanted to read it, but they don't read ebooks. Right. Bearing in mind that, as I say, right, I'm like the smallest of small flies. I'm like a Scottish midge, just buzzing around. I was like, do you know what? Like, I wrote this story. I actually wrote it for one reader, right? Because I wrote it for Ray, and so I was like, so it's found a second reader, and in order for them to read it, it needs to be in paperback format. But actually, sticking a book that you've already published on Amazon into a paperback format, the most tricky thing is redoing the cover. But I did the cover in Canva, right? So for me, writing a story that someone wanted to read enough to get my email out of the back of the book. I mean, it is there, but they wanted to read it enough to take a moment out of their day to email me and say, I really want to read the next one. You know, for me, that story has succeeded as much as I ever needed to. You know, the email I got accepting this poem that I've got coming out this week. You know, the editor said that like the last line hit him. Right. Well, that's what I wanted. Right. Like I wrote it down to get it out of me.
Yeah.
Now I've put it in them.
Sounds creepy.
But yeah, so like for a lot of my stuff, like I wrote it really purposefully. I wrote it because I love to tell stories, and I think I can. I think I tell a good story. I think I have certain. I'm not claiming by any means to be like, you know, the finished article or even necessarily that good, but I do think I write a story that can reach people, can tell the story that I mean to be telling.
Yeah.
So, for instance, like I know you've read of my stuff. You've read 13th Prince, right? That is, in some ways, it's like the book of my heart because that's the book that I wanted to write. It has themes in it. It's the like sales are pitiful, right? It's not reached the audience I would like it to.
Yeah.
But maybe it's reached all the audience it's ever going to get. That hasn't stopped me punching through. I mean, I'm 16,000 words through the sequel. I'm really enjoying it. Cool. I cracked the story for that the other day. Oh, I was so pleased with myself. I was like, oh, hello, bam, bam. So, yeah, I wrote a chapter of that yesterday.
Nice.
So I got a new unexpected character. She sort of popped in. So that's exciting. So that one will progress. I'm hoping to finish that during 26, and then I'll publish it because I can. So for those things, you know, I'm hoping that each story just finds someone that reads it and goes, okay, this was for me. Because in the same way that when I wrote it for me, and it's a very selfish act. And I selfishly want it to find someone. And if it's a poem that I've written and it speaks to them about their experience of parenting or their experience of going through some of the stuff that I go through, or it makes them laugh because it's something silly that I've written, or it makes them angry because it's the same, they share a politics or they hadn't really thought about the politics in the way that I do, and then it hits them, then that piece of work has accomplished what I want it to accomplish. Would I like J.K. Rowling money without the J.K. Rowling politics? Yeah. I mean, but we'd all like J.K. Rowling money without J.K. Rowling politics. Like, you know, I would like every morning to wake up and just to look in my bank account and just be full of new suckers' money. Like, that would be brilliant. And I would sacrifice any ability that I have as a writer in order to get that money because, you know, I think living in the lap of luxury would be very soothing. But in the absence of that, you know, I'll write a limerick, and you know, I've always like I used to flirt with girls by writing limericks. That was like, you know, I will still do that when I'm messing around with people. So you know, it's a thing for the moment, or it's a thing for whatever. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Like, you know, I know we talked about this when I was on last time, but like the beauty of having such a fractured and fragmented brain space is that once I've got this thriller out. Right, which I think so I've got a young adult that you've read, actually, Roots of the Clutch, which is still sitting and brewing. You know, if anybody wants to publish a like strange, I say Buffy meets Bridgerton, but Saffron can tell you what she thought of it. Like, I've got that. I'm working on an MG, and then I've got this commercial piece, and maybe that's like I'll come up with 12 other things, Saffron. Like, I think we both know that. But like at some point, I will have something for every. So I will have something for every reader that I can imagine. And I can imagine some pretty weird shit.
Yeah.
At which point, hopefully, I'll put a book in each of those people's hands, and
Mhm.
there'll be 40 or 50 or 60, and that might be enough. Although it might not be, because I'm an egocentric maniac.
Well, who knows? But as soon as you are discovered, you're going to have this massive back catalogue of stuff for people to enjoy.
That's not bad.
Yeah, which is great. So, I mean, it sounds like you're probably living successes each time you know that somebody has enjoyed your work, basically.
Yeah.
It's reached somebody and that you've been able to connect with another person through your writing, which is super cool.
Yeah.
The other question that I usually ask people, and if you do have any questions for Joel, please put them in the chat. If you were going to give yourself a piece of writing advice when you first started committing pen to paper, what advice would you give yourself?
That's an interesting one. So I think it's read even more, write faster.
Oh.
So, like, I mean, I'm lucky because my speed of reading consumption is grotesque.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I once, like, in a university holiday, I once read 6 novels in a day.
I believe that.
So, like, they just like, and also very different things. I broke for a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then you could get 6 books from the library at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go back the following day and take all 6 back and get 6 more. I tell you, you look crackers when you do that. But I would like to. I wish I had read a bit more widely at that point in my life when I had the time to do it.
Yeah.
I also I started and stopped and left it for a while and didn't know. And actually, I think now that after I learned how to successfully write a short story and how to successfully shape a poem, and I think in some ways it's like first I had to learn that I could write a book length piece of fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had to learn how it worked best for me, and now I know that I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm stuck, I'm like, okay, well, firstly, and as I say, I've got like on that screen there, I've got 2 different novels, 2 short stories open at the same time that I'm working on concurrently, and there's 2 other pieces in the background that are just like stirring. So like they're on the backstove just simmering.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that they will get finished because I know that I can finish and I know how to finish.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that when I have the psychological resonance of the key turning or the jigsaw piece rotating, or sometimes the jigsaw piece just appearing in my pocket and me being like, ooh, look, here's the answer, and checking out the page, I know what that feeling feels like and I know what the result of that is creatively.
Yeah.
But it took doing it to acquire that skill.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But like reading more widely, I wonder if I can pick the laptop up and pivot around. I can't really pick the laptop and pivot around. Like this whole wall here is fantasy books, and that whole wall there is fantasy books. Mm-hmm. But the house is full of other books as well. And so I read a lot more non-fiction than I used to. I dip in and out of literary fiction. I read a lot more poetry than I used to. And I think that makes me a more interesting person. It probably makes me a better writer, but it fills it affords me the capacity to think new things in new ways.
Yeah.
And to assemble those thoughts into a more coherent picture and vision of who I am as a person, which I think makes me a better writer. It
almost certainly will do, because if you just expose yourself to like this much of the world, then that's the only thing you're going to know what to what to write. Whereas if you open up your ability to be able to like even just getting to know different people, or I don't know, just seeing different styles of things, you're going to get introduced to new styles of poetry that you can dabble in, or trends that you hadn't paid attention to because that's the commercialized version of whatever. And by doing that, you've written 2 books already. And
well, that's it, isn't it?
Just by exposing yourself to something that you probably wouldn't have given second thought to. So yeah.
Might do. I'm just going to open my drive. Go on, ask me another question, and maybe we'll finish with something. Maybe we'll finish with something upbeat, because weirdly, like once you get into the technical bits of the craft and stuff, I'm like, I have to turn seriousness on. Like, actually, to give what is a very good and interesting question the response that I think is due.
Okay. In fact, I'm not going to ask another question. I'm going to tell you that I really, really, really love the Littlest Kingdom stories as an adult. Genuinely enjoy them because you use it as a vehicle to introduce kids to language that they wouldn't necessarily be exposed to. And I mean, like, technical language, not swearing or whatever, with like really fun characters, and they're so funny. They are so funny that I wish I had books like this when I was a kid. So if you do have children, I don't know what the age range is because I enjoy it and I'm nearly 32, but if you do want to support an indie author who has written kids books and you want to introduce your children to a variety of characters that come from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, abilities, identities, this is the collection that you need to read to your kids.
Well, thank you, mate.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but they are free as well. You can get them for free. On you can listen to them on YouTube for free. So if you hear that, and obviously that is incredibly touching. But yeah, if that doesn't sell you, the good news is you don't have to be sold because it is free. It's like crack, right? You know, I'll give you your first 3 for free, but then afterwards you're paying for them. I thought what I'd do for closeout, if that's okay with you.
Sure, yeah.
I've got a poem called The Compliment, right? And maybe it'll tie everything together because it is about. Yeah.
Let me see if I can give you a spotlight. Hang on. Can I make you bigger?
Maybe.
Oh, hang on. Okay, there you go. You have the floor.
So this will give you.
I don't know what just happened. Oh, here we go.
Things are just moving around in a very way. Like just the noise probably doesn't work on podcasts, especially the speed I listen to them. It's just like right. So give you a feel for life. Right? His toys are in a pile in my bed. A mountain of cartoonish fleece arms and legs, into which he is preparing to crawl. It is too late to take them to my room, he informed me solemnly. I can carry them for you if you like, I offer. He pretends to think about it for a moment. I think I'd rather sleep here tonight. I tuck him in, duvet under his back, my hand on his spine, reaching back through time to when I would fall asleep with my wrist trapped by the bars of the cot, face pressed into the carpet of his room. This can't last forever, you know, I tell him. He laughs, suddenly joyful. It can. We're a pair. He rolls onto his side and inspects me carefully. You're more grape-shaped. Then his eyes close, and just like that, he's asleep.
Oh, that was nice. Your kids are going to grow up and read the stuff that you've written and go, oh man, my dad really loved me.
I mean, that's the plan, right?
Yeah, it's cool. Well, that was a lovely way to end the show. And thank you so much for being here today. Your energy is unmatched. I don't think I've met a single person, and I'm sure you've had this before, that has the level of energy that you have. But you have the writing chops to back it up. So if you haven't checked out Joel's work, the link to I think I put the link to your Amazon page is in the description of the episode. So go check those out. Yeah, thank you for being here, and I'm sure I'll catch you around.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to listening to the rest of the episodes on 1.6 speed because it makes it easier for me to catch up.
Oh, also that's nice. We love making other people cry.
That's cool. I mean, it has to be said, that is literally the goal.
Yeah. Well, on that note, thank you everyone who joined us today. If you're watching the recording of this again, I have got a link to Joel's work in the description of the episode. Yeah, have a good rest of your day wherever you are, and I'll see you on the other side.
See you later, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.